This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by MindThings.com. Over the last year or so, I think I've had two different conversations that really frustrated me. They both went almost exactly the same way. Hi, how are you doing? Do you think there's anything I should cover more? Yes, Ridley, you should do more coverage of politics. Oh, okay. Well, would you like to talk to me about that on camera? No. So, however, despite this, I think that folks have a point, that I'm not covering politics as much as I'm covering, the people who sit in front of police cars. But aside from not talking to me, you political folk are doing other things that are making it difficult for me to cover politics. More specifically, I guess I should say that you're not doing the things that make it easy. Personally, I do not have a preference between political action and civil disobedience type action or outside the system action. Not in theory, anyway. However, the reality is that most people who do politics just make it boring. I think you've fallen into a trap. Politics doesn't have to be boring. It can be absolutely dramatic. Look at this video. This is politics, and it's riveting. Because there's these Ron Paul and Mitt Romney supporters sort of standing up for their rights and for the process. Now, maybe you can't create this situation, but I do have some tips for you as to how to make your political event more interesting. First, let's assume that the political event is a state house hearing, so it's one of those things that's slightly out of your control. Even here, you can kick ass if you put your mind to it. Let's say the hearing is scheduled June 1st, 2012 at 1 p.m. Here is what you do. A week before the hearing, you schedule a demonstration to happen an hour and a half before the hearing. You put up a Facebook page for the demonstration. You invite at least 100 people through Facebook. You put events on maybe some of the other calendars in the New Hampshire Freedom Movement. If you can prepare a little bit of street theater, that's better. Please don't whine to me about street theater being the purview of the left. Do I look like the left to you? Yes, here's me in a costume that had Hillary Clinton supporters coming up to hug me while I was carrying the Ron Paul sign. You can do street theater and be popular. I can't really do it anymore because it interferes with videotaping. But you can. Oh, and by the way, this costume is still for rent. Now, you do whatever else you want to publicize your protest. I mean, letters to the editor are not a bad idea. If you send them at least a week before the protest, maybe earlier. You can invite the media, too, if you want. But sending the letter to editor actually is doing both at the same time. You're hitting two birds with one stone because the media will often cover stuff they see in letters to the editor. 1 or 2 days before the hearing, you make a call to porcupine411.com, or maybe that's pork411.com, announce the event, direct people to the Facebook page. Then when June 1st does roll around, the hearing's at 1, you start the hearing, you start the protest an hour and a half before the hearing. By the way, something I've found is useful when you announce the timing, you don't talk about 1 p.m. You never mention that number. You say 11:30 a.m. You talk about the protest that will start at 11:30 a.m. and then you just mention that the hearing will be an hour and a half later. You never use the term 1 p.m. because then people will show up at 1 p.m., which is too late. They'll miss the protest. Now, during the demonstration, you or one of your friends gets YouTube video, puts that on YouTube at some point. Whatever other type of media coverage you want to give yourself. Maybe there'll be a still photographer there. Someone can blog about it. It's possible that your protest will draw some kind of, reaction, which will be very interesting video.
Are you guys demonstrating there?
Very briefly, yes.
Do you have a permit?
It's possible that the authorities will try and kick you off the grounds of the State House. If you don't have a permit, that's always great video. If you shoot it, What I'll do when I'm at events like this is I'll put an audio recorder on, and I'll put a sign on me that says I'm audio taping, and I'll just leave the recorder running. That captures any heckling, as people, sometimes they do this sort of heckling and running. So you've got to be rolling before the heckling starts, and that makes good media too. Anyone who's at the protest or the hearing afterwards.
The right side.
Representative Rouse, are you trying to subvert the legislative process by using bureaucracy?
Can take their camera and walk right up to, reps who are the bad guys and do ambush interviews. That's going to draw attention to your issue. It's good media. Ask them why they are favoring this particular use of violence against the people. Or, you really don't want to ask them that question, actually. You want to ask them a question that's a little bit more mainstream. You want to focus on their weak point. Why did you, why are you doing X? Why are you advocating Y? Or just, could I speak to you for a second? That one sometimes gets even, a gruff response, which is great video. It's useful to have someone record the entire hearing, just in case anything scandalous gets said. Not a bad idea to post that on YouTube, although most people will not watch an entire hearing. Someone should be videotaping or getting still photographs of the way the hearing looks, the way the audience looks, close-ups of faces, close-ups of any slogans on people's shirts. And here's something that just occurred to me the other day while I was at a redress hearing. Some of the activists there had, sort of set up a de facto get-together outside the hearing. There was another hearing room that was empty, and folks were just kind of gathering in there in twos and threes and just, chewing the fat, shooting the breeze. That gave me an idea. There's no reason you couldn't schedule an event that just runs concurrently with the hearing. That way people who sort of spill out of the hearing have a place to sort of gather and continue the civic discussion. I don't see any reason why it would just have to be our people. As far as I'm concerned, just a place for people to have discussions openly, whatever their viewpoints. In the hearing room, most people in there, all they can do is sit and listen the whole time, and that can be really boring. It's better to have a place you can converse. So, maybe schedule a concurrent event. That event could, I guess, continue occurring where the protest is, and the protest, I guess, could go on for as long as the hearing is going on, and become a gathering place for people to talk. Alternatively, in bad weather, you could just meet somewhere in the building. After you've done that, you can, if you like to write rather than do video, you can, write a detailed blog about all your experiences in the hearing. Put that on nhfree.com, detail it on YouTube if you want, read your writing into the camera. You can call Free Talk Live about it, tell them your experiences. And somewhere in there, it's likely you're going to shoot some video. Even if I don't show up, you're going to shoot some video that I'm going to want and going to download, maybe reuse it sometime to draw more attention to your issue. If I do show up, I'll have plenty to photograph. If the mainstream media shows up, they'll have plenty to videotape. That's how you make politics a little sexier. No, obviously it doesn't involve necessarily the need for any supermodels. Sexy can mean conflict. It can mean having open-carried firearms on. It can mean drugs. It can mean any number of things that are interesting and non-threatening. That's right, drugs are non-threatening. Mostly. People will someday get it into their head if they're open carried like firearms. Though preferably not at the same time. Anyhow, politics doesn't have to be boring. It's boring because you have let it be boring. Now, am I going to go out there and do all these things? Generally, no. But I am going to hold up my end. That's the video creation end. But you need to hold up yours. This is how you make it easier for me to do videos about you.
Have you played your fill of pro-government video games? MineThings.com could be the solution. It's free, imaginative, and you can play it entirely in your web browser. Recolonize the smothered earth. Dig up cool artifacts. Compete with other players in a free market scramble. Just remember to use the coupon code RIDLEY. That gives you twice the mining rate. Minedings.com